As this is our annual meeting, our agenda for this evening is a little different to usual, asking the Council, amongst other things, to elect a new mayor for the coming year, as well as making appointments to committees and outside bodies. However, I think this evening it would be appropriate for us to begin the meeting by standing in silence for 72 seconds as we remember all of those who lost their lives in the Grenfell tragedy. The first item of business this evening is the election of mayor. Could I have nominations, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Will Pascal for mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Could I therefore call Councillor Rendell to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For this council session of 2019-2020, I would like to nominate Councillor Will Pascal as Mayor of Kensington and Chelsea. I first met Will a few years ago in a pub, and as far as I can recall, which won't be a surprise to many, our first conversation was on enforcement. Although I could not really comment on the specifics at the time, as I didn't really know, this conversation was the first of many where I knew Will put residents first, whether it was on enforcement or meeting with residents to hear and listen to their views and enact upon that, or come up with policies that make the borough better. Being mayor will be a natural progression for him. Will has spent all his life in RBKC. He was born in Kensington. I'm off air, there we are. I won't say how long ago that was, but let's just say he is a well-established presence and would be suited to this role. Will has also raised a family in the borough and has had a business in RBKC for the past 40 years on Lotts Road. In 2010, he was elected to represent the residents of Stanley Ward and as my colleague. I would also like to welcome Councillor Pascal's nominated chaplain, the Reverend Emma Smith, who I think is here this evening. Emma is currently Associate Vicar of St Luke's and Christ Church in Chelsea, but will also take up a new appointment as Vicar of St Mary Abbots in Kensington later in this year. I wish to welcome you, Emma, to the Council, and I know you do an amazing and fantastic job. With Emma's help, I believe Will wishes to reach out to all faiths across the borough and work with all communities to make this place and community improved and really represent the diverse place that it is. During Will's time in office, he will attend many events in the borough, supporting organisations that will provide services to the community. He would do an excellent job representing residents, and I hope, in his previous role, will really drive change. I'm sure he'll do an excellent job representing everyone that lives and works in the borough. I would also like to welcome Councillor Waller Idris, who will be Deputy Mayor, Councillor Hargreaves will move her nomination shortly, and wish her well. Thank you. I wish to commend my nomination to the Chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Rendell. Councillor Hargreaves, do you wish to speak?
Madam Mayor, yes, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to second this proposal this evening and agree with what Councillor Randall has said and all the fine qualities that I'm sure Councillor Pascal will bring to the role of mayoralty. And I know that Will has got many qualities. He's very hard-working, he's very loyal, he's very fair, and he has an amazing eye for detail. So if any of us think we're going to outwit him on standing orders, you better get reading pretty quickly, because I'm sure he will know them all by heart very soon. And I know he'll be supported very well by his wife Sarah, a member of this council, who I know as a team will be doing a fine job in the role of mayor. I'm also delighted that he's chosen Councillor Waller-Idris as his deputy mayor. And many of us in this chamber will remember her excellent maiden speech only probably a few months ago, in which she made her presence felt within this chamber. Waller, born in Germany, raised in the Sudan, living in London, representing the Chelsea seat, a truly global citizen. And I think we're very lucky to have her here and taking on this role of deputy mayor. And I know that in the short time she's been on this council, she has made a real impact in representing some really tough issues for her residents in Brompton and Handstown, supercars, 24-hour city, lots of planning issues, and certainly I, as a lead member, have felt the pressure of her when she's got a bit between her teeth for a resident to make sure that fairness and justice is done to them. So she also has a tremendous warmth, a tremendous energy, and that will be, I think, really felt as she goes out and about in the borough, meeting residents and also representing the borough externally in the various functions she has to do there. So, Madam Mayor, it gives me great pleasure in seconding this proposal this evening and wishing the Mayor, the Mayoress and the Deputy Mayor a very enjoyable and successful term of office. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hargreaves. Would those in favour of appointing Councillor Pascal as Mayor please raise their hands? The vote is in favour of Councillor Pascal. I therefore declare that Councillor Pascal is duly elected as Mayor of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea for the ensuing municipal year. Councillor Rendell and Councillor Hargreaves, will you now leave the chamber to get... Yeah, bring him in, Councillor Pascal. Thank you.
I, William Blaise Pascal, having been elected Mayor of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof, according to the best of my judgment and ability. Please, would you all be seated? I am honoured and excited to have been chosen as the Mayor for the coming year, and I look forward to building on the excellent work of my predecessor, Marie-Thérèse Rossi, to ensure that the Mayoralty continues to play a major role in bringing communities and the Council together, celebrating the rich diversity of the borough and acknowledging some of the wonderful things that people are doing to make Kensington and Chelsea a better place. It is a great honour to be elected by my colleagues, and I'm aware of the enormous challenges that representing the borough and will ensure that the legacy of the Grenfell tragedy is the forefront of my mayoralty. I also want to be inclusive and work with everyone across the borough. We are a very diverse, thriving borough, and I will do my utmost to ensure I meet as many of the residents as possible. Rest assured, whatever your faith, age, or where you live, we are one borough, and I will be representing you all. I'm pleased to announce that from the start of my mayoralty, I will cease to use the Merrill Jaguar, which will be sold. From now on, I'll be using an electric vehicle, and by doing this, make a modest contribution to improving the borough's air quality, something about which I know we all feel strongly. Finally, I aim to launch my charity on the 20th of June at 6:30 in the Mayor's Parlour, and all of you be welcome. The first announcement I'd like to make is that Councillor Walla Idris has kindly agreed to accept the office of Deputy Mayor, and I'm pleased now to invest her with her Deputy Mayor's badge.
Thank you, Will. It's a huge honor and responsibility. It's a privilege to be asked, and I look forward to making you all proud and do my best to be the best Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, I've been very privileged also that Emma Smith has agreed to be my chaplain during my year of mayor. She is currently at St Luke's, which is in my ward, but she'll soon be moving to St Mary Abbott's, just around the corner from here. and become the new lead of that church. And I'm very pleased now to invest her with a chaplain's badge. The minutes of the meeting on the 24th of April have been circulated and laid before you. Is it your wish that I sign them as the correct record? Thank you. It is with great sadness I report the death of former councillor David Hudson on the 29th of April. David served from 1986 to 2002 as a member for Brompton Ward. I now call upon Councillor Freeman, who will move a vote of thanks for the retiring mayor.
Mr Mayor, may I first congratulate you, the Mayoress, the Deputy Mayor and your chaplain on this appointment and wish you tremendous success in the coming year. But it's my privilege this evening to propose a vote of thanks to the outgoing Mayor who has made such a fantastic contribution to this borough. It really seems rather longer than usual, since it was my privilege to propose her on the 24th of May 2 years ago, and in fact it is rather longer than usual, because in my memory, and I think in all the time that this council has been in existence, it's the first time that anybody has served 2 consecutive years as mayor, and what a 2 years this has been. 3 weeks after her election, the most terrible tragedy that has ever hit this borough, one of the most terrible tragedies that's ever hit London, occurred on the 14th of June. It changed the lives of so many people. It cost the lives of 72 of our residents, 2 of whom died later in hospital. It changed North Kensington. It changed Kensington and Chelsea, and it changed this council, and it changed the mayoralty. I had expected great things of Councillor Rossi, Marie-Therese MT, to her friends, because she had served me as my deputy mayor, and I had become quite accustomed to her compassion, her kindness, her hard work, and the way that she reached out to people. She did that with such tremendous kindness and enthusiasm as mayor. I don't think any of us will ever forget how well she fulfilled that role. It was a tremendous burden for her, and she was, if I may say, facing problems of health with her parents, but she never allowed anything to stand in the way of performing her duty. We all owe her an enormous debt of thanks. Can I also remember the people who supported her so well? First of all, Gerard Hargreaves, who supported her first as her deputy and later as her consort. Benzanel Ashari, who in September, following Grenfell fire, became her deputy mayor, and in the current period of her mayoralty, Mo, who was a fantastic deputy mayor, and the 2 of them incredibly friendly, incredibly able to reach out, and just made an enormous difference to her borough. And 2 other people, if I may. First of all, her chaplain, Monsignor Jim, who again was tremendous support to her, both in her mayoralty and in her personal life. And I don't think any proposal of thanks would be complete without remembering Jim Babington, who served so many of us former mayors with good humour, with skill, an incredible writer of speeches, although not many of us admitted that we hadn't written them ourselves. But I mean, he was incredible, the way he'd just sit down and it would flow, and it was an amazing achievement. So, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, it's my pleasure and my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to Councillor Mary-Therese Rossi. Thank you so much.
Can I please call on Councillor Atkinson to second the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll have to practice saying Mr. Mayor after the last couple of years. Mr. Mayor, I rise to second the resolution and all the comments that Councillor Freeman has made on behalf of the Labour Group. Both the outgoing Mayor and Deputy Mayor have indeed been excellent, and both have served well beyond the call of duty. In most circumstances, the Labour Group would not be in favour of a Mayor serving 2 years, but these were, as we've already said, exceptional circumstances, and we would like to thank you both for the job that you've done in the exceptional circumstances. I'd like to commend in particular Mo, who is the second Muslim to serve in the Mayor's Parlour, and to commend both the outgoing Mayor and Deputy Mayor for their quiet determination and their ecumenical work in the very difficult circumstances of the last 2 years. Also, I'd like to draw attention to the fact, and I think it was mentioned by Councillor Freeman, we recognise that both the outgoing Mayor and Deputy Mayor had difficult personal circumstances this year, but never for a minute did it affect either of them in the way in which they performed their duties. They were both humane and sensitive, but whenever necessary, they were tough. I commend in particular the keeping of order in this chamber, and I don't just mean keeping Councillor Palmer in his place. In the trying and testing circumstances of the last 2 years, this council could not have been better served, both by its mayor, its deputy mayor, and those whose duty it has been to support the mayor. We have been very lucky, and I hope we're going to be similarly lucky in the next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wade, I understand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank Mayor Rossi and Deputy Mayor Bakashir for the exceptional and exemplary mayoralty. These 2 years have probably been the most difficult for the Council, and yet, in their own ways, they have managed to achieve a balance between the very many demands and reached out to those in need and at a time of need. The first year in the spotlight, but the second was no less difficult. Being a mayor for 1 year is tough and acknowledged to be demanding, but 2 must be punishing, especially given your personal experience. Both have demonstrated that we have a council that has to genuinely respond to change and the diversity that exists in our borough, and we need to seek to bridge those divides and those divisions, and I think that both of you have done that superbly. Thank you very, very much on behalf of the very many people that you've really, really touched. Thank you.
Is the motion of vote of thanks adopted? We record everybody. Can I please present past Mayor's badge to Councillor Rossi and invite Councillor Rossi and Councillor Bakhtiar are up here to speak. Councillor Rossi, perhaps you'd like.
Yes, can I start by thanking everyone for their very kind comments? That means a great deal to me. Yes, I'm coming to the end of a memorable 2 years, and it's memorable for good and bad reasons. None of us will ever forget the impact of the terrible fire at Grenfell Tower and the change that it has made to this borough and to this council. Our community was torn apart by tragedy, and the effects of the night of the 14th of June 2017 will be felt for many years to come. However, being a mayor is a great privilege. It gives you the opportunity to get to know the borough better, to find out what goes on, and also to meet many residents. What has struck me most is just how many people give up their time freely to work in the voluntary sector to make this borough such a special place to live. We also have many dedicated people who work in our wonderful schools, hospitals, old people's homes, in our churches, synagogues and mosques. So being mayor is really a very positive experience as you meet so many good people who care so much about their community. I have now to make a lot of thank yous to people because, as you will all probably know, a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make the mayoralty work or seem to work smoothly. So firstly, I would like to thank the office. Jim Babington has already been mentioned, who made a great contribution, and also Anne and Sergio, who kept things going in his absence. I'd also like to thank the mace bearers, Mr. Rush and Mr. Trebiatowski. I thank them all for their patience, for their efficiency and good humour. Then I go on to my deputy mayors. In my first year, I had the lovely Benazir Dashari, and this year I have been blessed with Mo Bakhtiar, who is a very kind man and is devoted to serving his community. I also thank my chaplain, Monsignor Jim, and as Councillor Freeman said, he has helped me so much in a personal way, but also as my chaplain, and I thank him for his kindness and his good advice. Finally, I come to Gerard Hargreaves, who has been, well, first my deputy mayor, but then my consort and companion for the past 2 years. I could not have done this without him, and so I am very grateful to him for all the support that he has given me over the past 2 years. Will Pascal is a very wise choice for the next mayor, and I'm sure that him and his wife Sarah and Wala Idris as his deputy have a great deal to offer as a team to this borough. I wish you all well, and I hope you enjoy the year ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to congratulate you to become our next mayor and to Wala to become our next deputy mayor. Ramadan Kareem and happy Ramadan to you all. I would like to thank Councillor Mary-Therese Rossi for choosing me as her deputy last year. I was honoured working with you, and you have been very patient and very good mentor guiding me throughout the year. I have learned a lot from you. I also would like to thank my fellow Labour councillors for their continued support. I am very grateful for the support that I have got from the rest of the councillors on my visits and in the events in the parlour. I would like to thank the staff in the Mayor's office, especially Mr. Jim Babington, who left in March, Ms. Anne Craig, and Mr. Sergio Seaman, who became an expert in just a few months, Mr. David Rush, Mr. Philip Chabiatowski. It took me 6 months to learn his surname. And don't ask me to spell it because I don't know. Mr. Mayor, life is nothing but an endless learning process. You don't know how diverse the borough is until you serve as a mayor or a deputy mayor. We are very lucky to live in this wonderful borough. Serving as a deputy mayor gave me the opportunity to learn about the borough. I have met so many wonderful people in all parts of the borough in the past 12 months. I now have a better understanding about where we live. I have learned that we have many who are skilled amongst our residents who are willing to put their knowledge and expertise for good use and to serve their community. It's down to us to reach out for them, to find them, and to find the legal frameworks to accommodate them and put them in a good use. Thank you for your support, and thanks for the good words said about me. God bless you. Be good, do good. God bless you all. Thank you.
There will now be a short intermission. We're running slightly ahead of programme, but since the main AGM has been advertised at 6:30, could we be back here before 6:30 so that we can start promptly at 6:30? Thank you very much. Thank you, and please be seated. As the incoming mayor, chairing this meeting on your behalf is, to me, daunting. Mea culpa, my behaviour on the benches could always have been better. Nonetheless, I ask you for your help in all of us being respectful of each other, keeping to time, procedure, and Dr. Barry Quirk, as Chief Executive, will advise me on the relevant standing orders. The more we do this, the more we will be able to have the widest range of views heard and constructively debated and decision-making for our residents more effective. Next, we have public speaking. As you know, the Council is keen to encourage public involvement in this meeting. Up to 1 hour has been set aside for questions from residents and Council responses. The format is for those residents who have registered to speak for up to 5 minutes, and there will be a short 2-minute reply from the lead member and also for a spokesperson from the opposition. We will be reviewing the effectiveness of this format at a future meeting to ensure that sessions are well run and productive as possible. Before doing so, I should state that this Council meeting is taking place on a day before an election. Therefore, members are reminded of the pre-election guidance. During debate and when answering questions, members are reminded that they must avoid comments that would affect or influence public support for a political party or a candidate. I now hand over to the Democratic Society, who will facilitate this part of the meeting, and I'll ask them to continue. Thank you very much.
So our first speaker, get my glasses on. Our first speaker this evening is Abdurrahman Said, who is going to speak for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, can I congratulate the new Mayor, Councillor Pascal, on your appointment this evening, and your deputy as well, I think. And may I also use this opportunity to thank the outgoing Mayor for all the good work she did during the critical times of the last year and a half or so. Councillors, we are privileged to have this opportunity to speak to you today, and we thank you for that. We're here to speak about a plot of land opposite Al-Manar at Aklam Road. This land is very important to us for various reasons, so I'm going to give a brief background on that plot of land. The RBKC Cabinet met at Al-Manar on 13th July 2006 and approved a decision to grant us first option on the land. We secured a planning permission for the proposed development in June 2008. We were granted license to carry out material work on the site in April 2012 to facilitate the extension of the planning permission. Al-Manar was expected to complete purchase of the site for £2 million and complete building on the site by the end of 2015. Work was undertaken by Al-Manar to negotiate and finalize a 999-year lease and to complete the design for a mixed-use development. Unfortunately, Al-Manar was unable to raise enough money to complete the site purchase on the agreed time frame. Hence, the first option was formally withdrawn from us in 2014-15. In a meeting with senior councillors from RBKC on 12 May 2015, RBKC expressed willingness to negotiate a new deal with Al-Manar if a credible and deliverable proposal was presented within 6 months. Again, due to organizational difficulties, we did not pursue this effectively. At the time, Al-Manar had no executive director for a few years and had no director at all until 2016, June 2016. This was followed also by the Grenfell Tower fire tragedy, which kept us all busy handling the crisis. Since 16 May 2018, we have had numerous meetings with council officers and councillors to explore options for the land. That included a meeting with Councillor Kim Taylor-Smith, which were constructive at the time. However, we believe our community needs can be best met by going back to the original plan for the land, and that's to lease it to Al-Manar. I was appointed in 2016, and I have been driving a vision for building relationships both with the community as well as with all stakeholders, including the local authority. And this was manifested during the Grenfell crisis and afterwards. We're now in a position where we can deliver on the proposal that was originally intended. Our objective is to generate a sustainable stream of income that secures the service Al-Manar provides to the community. Al-Manar is uniquely placed opposite the plot of land we are talking about, which is a stone throw away, and that cannot be ignored. This land has been important to us for the last 10 years, and there is no better or closer land that can help us continue to serve our community. The land will generate revenue to sustain our services to the community to meet the increasing and diverse needs of our community. With only 2 full-time staff and the rest volunteers, there is no doubt that we are an institution led by the community for the community. We therefore demand the Council to grant the original option on the land. We shall remain responsive, open and cooperative and ready to work with you on realizing this option. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Abdurrahman, for coming. I'll start with your comment saying that we had a constructive meeting, because that's obviously the last time we had a discussion on this particular site. I think just to remind the Chamber that we made an announcement that we had an ambitious programme of house building in order to provide much-needed social housing. And the Ackland Road site is one of 4 key sites that we have secured a grant from the Mayor of London to deliver homes. It's the first 4. And one of the reasons why it was selected is it's because it's a free site. It doesn't involve any decanting of any residents at all. And I know when we embarked in it, I was unaware of the history going back to 2006 and the discussions you had. For me, it was just an opportunity as far as the site is concerned. I think it's important to say that obviously what we did, as we promised to do, is to have a consultation with all our local residents, including yourselves and organisations. And we have done that. We've had a number of drop-in sessions, and I know that you've attended, and a number of your colleagues, to look at how we might actually incorporate. And it became very clear from those discussions, and certainly given the high regard that this council has for your organisation and the Al-Manar, is to see whether or not we could take the benefit of what was being provided to us for the Mayor, our objectives of getting housing, and your objectives as far as involving community space. And I understand that those discussions are still ongoing, and we're looking at how we might do this and build this and work together. But that is part of a consultation. I think specifically to your call that we honour an agreement which obviously goes back to 2006 for a fixed value of £2 million. I can't comment on that. I think I would have to say to you that obviously, as far as a council, we have an obligation to get proper value for things. But it is, I think we need to have a consideration for this as part of our consultation, and we need to have another meeting. But thank you for coming.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming, Brother Abdurrahman. Al-Manar, for those who don't know, is an anchor centre. Al-Manar is, when this council collapsed 2 years ago, Al-Manar and churches and community centres stepped in to rescue and accommodate the survivors, the volunteers, and victims' families. Al-Manar, Abdurrahman being the CEO of Al-Manar in the past 3 years. But in the past 3 years, he transformed this centre. It's in the heart of the community. It's visited by 5,000 visitors every week. How many centres do you know in the country, not in London, in the country, who had 5,000 visits? Al-Manar, post-Grenfell, needs to do what they think it's good for them to sustain and continue as an organisation. You have our support. Thanks for coming.
Brilliant. So thank you very much. Our next speaker is Tabassum Awan.
Is that, yeah, perfect. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor and Deputy, and thank you to all councillors and residents and everyone here who's attending today. So just to introduce myself, my name is Tabassum. I've been a resident in the area for 3 years and recently appointed as a trustee on the Westway Trust. I'm going to talk about Al-Manar's activities and its vision for the future. Al-Manar is a beacon institution in the borough, as well as a role model community centre and mosque nationally. Al-Manar strives to continuously engage with people of all faiths and none, and endeavours to help the community of North Kensington, as was demonstrated through the Grenfell Tower fire and beyond. On the morning after the Grenfell Tower fire, I walked into a centre that I heard was serving the victims, and I have been a volunteer at Al-Manar since. Not only was I inspired by the actions of the staff at the centre, but I was moved by the way in which they were open to all members of public, such as myself, bringing us together in action to support the community at the time of need. To me and many of us in the borough and beyond, they are an ideal reflection of what a community institution should be. They truly embody their mission, which is, as stated, to serve, educate, empower and inspire people to play an active and positive role in building cohesive and sustainable communities. The activities of Al-Manar benefit the whole community, and their doors and services are open and available for the entire community, not just Muslims. From active involvement in interfaith events to counselling and therapy, Saturday schools and free funeral services, these are just some of the reasons that Al-Manar has received the recognition and attention from the wider public, politicians and, of course, the royal family. Al-Manar was the first mosque in the country to host the homeless, to eat and sleep in the centre during winter. What I have come to understand is that Al-Manar is the kind of nimble, responsive, sincere and welcoming institution that this borough and the world we live in today needs. So why not support the requests of a well-established centre that is fulfilling the needs of this community and enabling it to thrive? We should all ask ourselves the question of who better understands the community than the community itself. Al-Manar needs to be heard, valued, empowered and supported to continue building on the great work it already does, and this brings me to talk about the services that we have identified for this land. The Hub Community Kitchen, which is an independent project that takes place in the centre and is behind the charity cookbook Together. For those of you who don't know, this canteen gathering was created as a result of the group of local women in the community who came together following the fire to restore hope, normality and tranquility in their lives through cooking. We've also identified a need for a community health service, alternative medicine and wellness centre with a focus on psychotherapy and counselling, a community nursery, a vocational training and adult training centre. The community of North Kensington is resilient and driven, and we understand the community's desire to be empowered and given opportunities to learn new skills. And a business and career incubator. We must address the needs of the youth and young professionals at all levels and provide them with workshops, advice and programmes tailored to their needs. We welcome everyone to our centre to visit and participate in the numerous projects that we proudly support. We thank all those that have supported our institution, including our local voluntary community and our interfaith partners. But going forward, we need the full support of the Council too, so that we can, through Al-Manar, enable this community to rebuild itself and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tabasum, for coming to speak with us, and thank you both for coming to talk to us about Al-Manar and helping us learn more about everything that the mosque does to support our community. It is our local organisations, charities, schools and religious institutions that bring people together, encouraging them and supporting them, and they are the cornerstone of our communities. Al-Manar has united many communities of all faiths for many years. It does this quietly and without the need for thanks or fanfare. But the work speaks for itself through multiple community projects, particularly immediately after the Grenfell disaster and since. And congratulations on your awards, which I think is fitting recognition. I also wanted to thank you, Tabasum, on behalf of everyone here, for agreeing to be a trustee of the Westway Trust. As a close neighbour of the mosque, I think I speak for the Board of Trustees that we are looking forward to your input, and I know that you will represent new voices and bring new ideas. I also wanted to publicly thank Councillor Press for her commitment and energy in setting the agenda for change at the Westway Trust. Everyone in this community will benefit from the foundation that she has laid for this change. And I also wanted to welcome Councillor El Nagi on behalf of the Board of Trustees, and we look forward to his contribution in driving the charity forward to support the community. But, of course, we are not here to discuss the Westway Trust, which I'm sure we will do another time. In my community role, I just wanted to offer my full support to you both and to the mosque for your vision and your plans for the future. And thank you very much again for coming to speak with us.
Al-Manar is located in Goulburn Ward. I'm one of the councillors that represents Goulburn Ward, so I endorse all of the things that the speakers have lauded Al-Manar for. They are absolutely true, and thank you very much, Abdurrahman and Tabassin, for coming in and telling us about what you do. There's no doubt that you've built up a huge amount of respect on this council and in Kensington, Chelsea, and nationally about the work that you do. And when we were having tough times in the past with security issues, the police always used to tell us that Al-Manar were the most moderate and best mosque in London for de-radicalising and making sure that nothing of that kind ever happened there. And it's because of all the good work that you've mentioned. And the question is, should the council reopen the option, albeit that we've heard what you said? And given the huge amount of respect that's been built up for Al-Manar, yes, of course, we should. Why not? There's no reason why we should not, because the services that you mentioned that could go there, possibly there will be huge benefit for the Goulburn and for Kensington Chelsea total. But I think it's only respectful that we do go back and talk to Al-Manar and that we don't just cut them off. Kim Taylor-Smith said he wasn't quite sure of the history. He didn't know the history of this piece of land. Well, we know the history. And I think I agree with Abdurrahman that who is better to decide what should happen in the community they have served for 20, 25 years now than the mosque themselves. So I'd absolutely support that we do go back to them and don't just lip service talk to them. I think that they've got some good plans for this land. Perhaps the council and you can really get together, but I think it has to be not just lip service. I think that we really need to understand that the mosque is the force here in Goulburn and in this borough, and without their support, anything that's put on that land is not, let me say, might not be very successful.
Next speaker is former councillor Eve Allison.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to the mayors, and I would just like to start. 2,000 signatures in 2 weeks. I think that's quite phenomenal, and I've been asked to speak this evening on behalf of, I think we've got 15 ladies here. This evening, who possibly face being put somewhere else. I'd just like to say I also live in social housing. One day I will become vulnerable also, hopefully not yet. And I am also poor, so I'm going to begin now. Mr. Mayor, councillors, I am reading this speech prepared by some of the residents because they fear by making public their anxieties they will be penalised by the trustees who can ask them to leave their flats. For those who have not read or seen the petition, may I read it out before I speak of the reasons we are making this petition, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. We, the undersigned, petition the Council of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea to use its best endeavours to protect our 29 homes, which are located in the almshouses, also known as the Shepherd Trust, which are situated in Lansdowne Walk, West 11 3LN. Several of these 29 flats have been there since the 1950s. We, The present residents and beneficiaries are vulnerable, elderly women of limited means with roots throughout Kensington and Chelsea. The ladies are asking not to be moved out of the area against their will. We implore the Cabinet and councillors to instruct its planning department to designate all the Shepherd Trust houses in Lansdowne Walk as assets of community value, to protect the buildings by designating that they have social and community use, thereby demonstrating the value Kensington and Chelsea places on housing its elders within the heart of the community, and the importance that its long-term residents bring to the rich diversity of the borough. Mr. Mayor, we have today handed you a petition signed by at least 2,000 people who uphold our need not to lose our homes here in the borough. Public perception of almshouses is that they are quaint, benevolent relics from our past, providing shelter and homes for the poor and vulnerable elderly. Quaint they may be, but benevolent they are not. Today's almshouses are businesses in the truest sense. They make money. Many are housed in gorgeous buildings ready for transformation into luxury homes. That's the rub. That's what's happening to the 15 ladies who are present here tonight, although this petition is regarding the 29. They want to cash in on the valuable, large, early Victorian Kensington homes we live in. The Shepherd Trust has always wanted to provide more homes for needy elderly women with limited means. This was the true purpose of Elizabeth Shepherd, our founder, who provided the original trust in 1855, in addition to the 6 houses in 3 boroughs. That's right, 3 boroughs, Kensington, Hammersmith and Bayswater, to buy a building to take care of those residents who were no longer able to care for themselves. Now, since 2008, this is what the Trust should have done, remaining in these boroughs to follow Miss Shepherd's aim in the original deed, rather than pursuing the project they have now adopted, that all the residents of whatever stage of their old age should all be under one roof, and that they have chosen to develop this idea miles outside of London. Okay, some trustees joined the Shepherd Trust in 2010, several later, until March of this year. None had met any of us or showed any interest in us in our lives here. We are Londoners. Most of us have lived in Kensington for a very long time, and they plan to move us out of the city to the suburbs. Nothing is wrong with the suburbs. They'll be too far away from our families, our friends, hospitals, and our carers. Having lovely gardens is healthy because it helps us to be healthy rather than cramped sites in a possible new location. And I'll just go to the last page very quickly because I've been asked to speed up. Merci. Okay, whilst one is vulnerable, you have to be grateful, but only if the benefice is gladly given. When we put our names on the waiting list, we all thought that an almshouse would be safe and a charitable place to spend our latter days. But over the past few years, the take-it-or-leave-it attitude has got stronger, and we have become more vulnerable knowing that there is nowhere else to go. So please, Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen of the council, we plead you to protect our homes in Lansdowne Walk, which is in Norland Ward, my ward, some of which have been lived in since the 1950s, and until now, gladly, happily and securely. Please give us the security which all others have in rented accommodation. to enjoy the right by ensuring that these women, these properties remain as they are today, affordable flats for these elderly women. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Eve, for bringing up this very important issue, and thank you to the 15 people who have joined us today as representatives from Lansdowne Walk. As a housing association tenant myself, this is an issue that I think is incredibly important and one that I can only imagine is incredibly distressing for those who are affected by it. That is why I do want to help. I'm aware of the petition too, and I'm grateful for you reading it out because I think it does help to clarify the situation in the minds of councillors, and I am determined to see what I can do. My understanding of ACV assignment is that it has to be submitted by a qualifying community group, and subject to that, it may go ahead. However, as I understand it, it cannot work in relation to residential use. That doesn't. I still want to do everything I can to help, and I would be more than happy to meet with representatives, including yourself and some of the residents from Lansdowne Walk, to discuss this further and to see if there's a way that we can help. That's what I can do for you. But I just want to say that I think this is a very sad situation, and I would love to be able to affect it. So I hope that we are able to work together on this.
Thank you for coming and telling us this, Eve. Whether or not we can place an asset of community value on this property, we as a council should say, in this instance and other instances, that we are absolutely opposed to these housing associations and landlords chucking people out onto the street or chucking them into the suburbs because they want to realise profit on these buildings. And it doesn't take any money out of their pockets. They're a trust. They're getting paid salaries as chief executive and so on. We should be opposed to this sort of thing. This sort of thing is happening not just here, of course, it's happening all over the country, but it's happening all over the borough, and it's been happening in North Kensington for the last 20 years. We've got people socially cleansed by private landlords and, to its disgrace, by the former TMO that's now running, the council is now running those properties. So if we value those residents, we need to just not say, as quite often is said, well, it's got nothing to do with us, or we don't have the legal power. We can shame those people. We can, as a council, say, we don't agree with what you're doing. These are our residents that paid their rates and their taxes all these years. Just because they are elderly and vulnerable now, and they thought they were safe in the houses that they perhaps hope to die in, or at least end their life in, we don't agree with this. It's inhuman. You wouldn't do it to your own mother. You wouldn't do it to your own elderly fathers. So don't do it to our residents. So I've no idea if an ACV will succeed. They're very difficult things to place anyway and keep in place anyway, as we've found in various properties in North Ken. But we as a council should certainly put the finger on those people and say, we're not going to let you do this without sticking your face in the press or exposing what you're doing. We can at least do that. It doesn't cost us any money to do that. We've got a huge communications department up there, or individual cabinet members, or certainly senior people here can say this publicly and certainly go after those people. I'm sure that we've got connections with trusts like this. We can go in and talk to them. We don't have to say, well, you know, they can do what they like. They can do it like. Thank you very much for telling me this, for telling me to stop. But we need to, the more you talk, the more I wait until you finish. So we need to stick the finger on those people.
Is our next speaker is Joe Batty.
No? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for affording me this opportunity to speak. My name is has been said, is Joseph Batty. I'm a Senior Community Development and Engagement Officer at Kensington and Chelsea Social Council. My role, in line with KCSC's objectives, is to build a community-led social action, and in doing so stimulate and support community alliances between and across the community and the third sector, in particular in North Kensington. And this is to ensure that place, people and community assets are the foundation of local decision making. And to do this, we will do it by strengthening civic partnership through training and upskilling, supporting local voices to influence and foster opportunities for closer ties between grassroots community groups and local actors and the statutory and voluntary sector, such as holding facilitated meetings. Organising the Grenfell Network Group, which is an ad hoc group of people who KCSC brought together in the wake of the fire from the community, from businesses and from the CVSs to coordinate improving local services. And also I support the development of local community-led initiatives such as emerging CICs. And it is this mission that led KCSC to the government review process, which is going to be discussed at some point this evening from the very beginning. We held a meeting at the last minute, really, of the voluntary sector to put our side of what we would like to see in the governance review at the last minute. And due to the initial speed of the decision-making process, we felt that the local community in North Kensington, in particular, felt remote from this process. So this led myself and KCSC to invite Ed Hammond from the Centre for Public Scrutiny to present their findings and recommendations to the Grenfell Network Group, and subsequently KCSC immersed ourselves in the governance review, and I've been part of that, as have other prominent members of KCSC board. Initially, we were pleased with the Centre for Public Scrutiny's framework and the 12 recommendations that they made, and also we were interested in the foundations for, I think they call it the foundations for improvement, and we thought these were really good principles by which the Council could move forward. KCSC, through the process of the review, raised issues relating to some papers that they'd put in that weren't discussed. And unfortunately, though they haven't to date, we still remain hopeful that they will be considered in the process, and we wonder what has happened to other papers that were also submitted. KCSC are committed to seeing the vastly talented community of North Kensington at the forefront of change, generating ideas, controlling meaningful budgets. They want to be the architects of reshaping their community in the aftermath of the fire, and not merely people who are consulted. We recognise the review is borough-wide, and we understand that it has to be, but we urge, even at this late stage, that consideration be given to the points that we raised in an earlier paper, which looks at outlining a comprehensive system of local thematic groups run by the community, which could make recommendations for the council and which had access to realistic and meaningful budgets in order to achieve their aims. Thank you. I'll leave it there because I believe that we're running behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batty. And as you say, you're a prominent member of the community in North Kensington. And thank you very much because, I think you came to every single one of our borough area governance review sessions. I don't know what you mean by various papers didn't come to the group. I can certainly look into that because, as far as I was concerned, as co-chair of the panel, that we did look at all the papers that were presented to us, and we did have quite long and detailed conversations about various things like that, area government, how people should be represented. We looked at other models around the country, and although we probably, I don't know, I suspect we disagree on the extent to which parish needs to be devolved, I think we completely agree about how much residents need to be involved, and that's the drumbeat that we heard, I believe the panel heard throughout this, that people want to be at the centre, they want to be involved, they want, as the lady at the last administration committee said, she said, well, you know, we don't necessarily have time to look at all the details. That's why we elected you. But we want you to do your jobs properly, and we want to be involved in decisions, and we want you to be able to bring people so that we can hold them to account for things. And I think that's where we've got to in our recommendations tonight, that what we believe we heard and what we've agreed to do is to say, well, the ward councillor is the building block of our system, and that they need to be empowered to have meetings, whether individually or across wards, to invite people in that residents want to cross-question, that they should have a bigger budget, we should be doubling their budget. So, okay. Equal opportunity. I'll just say, have a bigger budget so that actually residents can be involved in things which matter to them at a local level.
Thanks for coming, Joe. Thanks for coming, Joe. I think I dug out the paper that you submitted to the 25th of April, I think it was, a panel, if I remember rightly, and it ended up by saying, we believe that local people will feel that the recommendations do not reflect the radical changes expected following the public commitment to fundamental change made on behalf of RBKC by the leader of the council. I hope that doesn't upset the balance of the election tomorrow, which is going to crucify them anyway. But don't worry, they're going to look into it. As you've seen, if you wait until later, it's allowed. If you wait until later, well, the legal officer can decide whether or not the country will swing one way or the other tomorrow. You will see that the report later says that devolution to even ward level is not being considered. Basically, the leader talks about City Living Local Life, which is already a devolved fund under briefings and surveys to local residents. That's been offered instead. That's already there. Some of us think that could be just a sop to say, well, we're giving you this, which you already have, but the devolution that you want and that communities say they want, and that we've heard them say that they want, and that you quite clearly state here, is not what's been offered yet. But of course, the Council's not going to finally decide on its proposals until the 24th of July meeting. They're not going to decide tonight. At least I hope they're not going to decide tonight. We're going to decide in July the final proposals. So who knows? You may lobby one more time and see if you can get that inserted.
Can I remind members that we are in PERDA and just to be careful about how we're speaking? Okay, just... Thank you. So I will leave that to be picked up after the meeting. Our next speaker is Diana Randall. Thank you very much, Diana. Yeah, we're just going to pop that on.
Yes, okay. So, first of all, congratulations to the incoming Mayor and Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much to all the councillors for giving me the opportunity to speak. I've never been in a situation like this before. The format is completely new to me, and everyone else looks very well prepared with papers, so I hope I'm going to be able to be clear. I've lived in the borough on and off many times. Whenever I've been in London, I've always lived in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, and this time I've been living here for 17 years on Sloane Street. And the issue I want to speak about is the traffic nuisance that has gradually got worse and worse over the years. Two particular nuisances are the speeding and the noise pollution, let alone pollution from exhausts and so on. There was a working group that started on Monday. We met on Monday. I hope I'm right in calling it a working group. It was chaired by Councillor McVeigh. And I'm hoping that we can carry on meeting and get some action taken about this ongoing problem. Various things have been asked for in terms of speed bumps and speed cameras, measuring of decibels, because the volume of noise that's created by what are called the supercars and motorbikes is extremely high, and as one of the people in the working group said, it breaches legal standards. The level of noise breaches legal standards. So I think other areas affected are the round Earls Court, Brompton Road, Edgerton Gardens, Ovington Gardens. And this is really very, very highly stressful and affects families very much, as well as just ordinary working people like myself. There are regular meetings monthly of these supercars that convene on Sloane Street in like 50 at a time. They do U-turns in front of buses. Motorbikes do wheelies up the road. I mean, it's all very entertaining. Police seem to do nothing when you ring up and they say, oh yeah, we've had a lot of calls, but you never see any police coming to disperse these cars. And they're just a total menace, and hopefully the Working Party going forward will be able to find some solutions and actually get some effective action to be taken about this situation. And I just ask the Council to fully back any measures that can be taken to deal with this, because it has been going on for years and years and years and years and years, and it's reaching crisis point when residents are starting to talk about forming vigilante gangs, and we don't want to get to that sort of level. So there must be some sort of legal measures that can be taken to stop these people behaving in such an antisocial manner.
Thank you, Diana, for coming in to discuss this concern. In fact, one of the first things I did since I came in post was I met with residents on Ovington Square to discuss a very similar problem. It's one that I think we are taking seriously. As you point out, there is the resident-led working group, and great work by Councillors McVeigh, Wheel and Idris as well in helping to convene that. As I understand it, you're looking at some innovative solutions to the problem of noise pollution, which I think, as you rightly say, is particularly a problem for young people as well, who have to breathe in those fumes potentially. I understand that officers will be looking into constructing a paper that will look at the feasibility of some of the solutions being discussed, and I'm happy to take a closer interest in this issue. It's something that I completely recognise and hope that I can help with.
Well, of course, we would support the working group. I think if you've got the right people around the table, they will be able to decide what to do and then implement it, because sometimes implementation is the problem. We have this problem all over the borough, all over London. There's far too much traffic, there's far too much people speeding around, there's far too much people breaking the law, parking all over the place, bus routes are disrupted, and the forces of law and order are getting less and less because of policing cuts and different priorities and so on. You hear what they say, and they're probably fed up coming down to various roads, and because quite often they will say, well, that's something the council or some other body should be dealing with, and we shouldn't be running there to deal with it, and we don't have enough officers to deal with murders or burglaries or whatever. So if you've got the right people around the table and they actually take action, because then hopefully locally you'll be able to squeeze them out of your area. But it does take a lot of effort, and it does take a lot of arm twisting of police and other people around the table who will talk a lot, but actually implementation can be quite hard. But you've got to keep at it. You've got to keep at it every week. You've got to make sure that at the next meeting, what have they done? Have a checklist. Have you done this? Why haven't you done this? You've got to make it happen, because these are hard things to happen, to clear streets of traffic. These are hard things to happen. But you just have to be persistent. There's no other way around it. be persistent and force the people that you elected you, and I'm sure they are at the table and that's their job, and I know that if it was in our ward, it would be the same. They've got to get the police and other authorities to act.
Family double act of Danny and David Legate.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So, TfL cycle highway proposals. We represent the Holland Park Traders Association. In the borough, there's been a problem with independent shops closing. Holland Park Traders acknowledge that this TfL proposal will force further closures. TfL seem oblivious to the dangers of their proposal. And there are three main points that will force our shops to close. The lack of customer parking and parking spaces moved. Parking will always be a critical issue. This Easter, RBKC carried out pavement works for nearly 3 weeks. Our parking was suspended and our sales were down between 10 to 15% than we'd expect. We were not notified of it. The first we saw were the diggers on the road, digging up the pavement. Many customers who may come at the weekend buying for families tend to shop at 5 or 6 of these different shops. We often see customers in our shop with bags from Jeroboam, Speck, Paul and Mechanical Brothers. This shop is not possible without a car. If these people cannot park, they simply won't come, and we will lose large spending customers. Delivery vehicle spaces, particularly the chemist, Perkins, Daunt's, Jeroboam's and us, rely on daily deliveries from suppliers. None of us have back entrances, so we require loading and unloading spaces to exist. The proposal omitted this, and TfL planners admitted to me they had completely overlooked this. Less customers due to congestion. Removal of one vehicle lane, vastly more crossings across one-way streets, restricted turns will cause huge and frustrating congestion. Residents and visitors will avoid the area. We already have a decreasing population in Holland Park due to relocation, and traders feel they cannot simply downsize with lesser staff and lower turnovers. Business costs have increased, including rates, VAT, packaging and staffing costs. So we were hoping for a positive support from the council to maintain our local shops. I'm going to pass you over to my father, who's going to continue. Thank you very much.
I feel as if I've been here and done this before, because it doesn't seem long ago that the Chamber of Commerce phoned me up and said they wanted me to lead a campaign against Holland Park Avenue and Fulham Palace Road being made red routes. Everyone else had given in, and Fulham Palace Road did a funeral procession that got on the news, and we decided, we were told that the residents had been consulted, and the residents agreed. So we asked the residents, and we found 98% of them felt they had not been consulted. And they rose up in a great fury. We were given 3 weeks. I was given 3 weeks. The council was going to rubber stamp the almighty traffic from London. They can't be resisted. They were going to rubber stamp it here in this building, and usually about 20 people. 200 residents turned up here. It was supposed to be a silent meeting, and they called out a man from his dinner party, and he said, "Sit down," to the chap who was talking. He said, "Who do you think you're talking to?" There was an uproar, and all the Conservatives said, "We agree with it." And then one Labour councillor said, "I don't," and she got cheered to the rafters by your voters. That's how little they felt they're consulted, and damn me if the same thing isn't happening again. We're asking the residents, had they been consulted about this? They're saying, no, we are not feeling that at all. And they're going to rise up again. Can't you see it coming? And they said the shop closures, none of them, that hasn't entered traffic from London. They don't give a damn about the shops closing, but it will close us. But the residents really didn't like that. But now they're going to rip the trees up. 20 trees are going to be ripped up, for God's sake. How's that going to make the air better? The traffic's going to be slowed down. How's that going to make it better? What are you, the Royal Borough, what are you going to do about it, please?
Thank you to David and Danny for their sincere and heartfelt arguments in relation to what is a TfL proposal in relation to the West London cycleway. We have met a number of times over recent weeks, and I have listened to some of your concerns. Our position for the moment has been that we are listening to as many residents as possible, which I'm sure you will appreciate that. When we first met, I told you that we would do all we can to promote the consultation that ends on the 16th of June. And so we did, and many of my colleagues helped. We did a leaflet, and we went out and delivered in the 4 most affected wards. I've covered my entire ward, Holland Ward, with leaflets promoting this consultation. We have also actually listened to you in relation to the need for a public meeting. We're grateful to the Kensington Society, who have helped to set this up and who have helped to facilitate it, but we are happy to announce that on the 13th of June, I believe there will be a public meeting at the Town Hall where residents can discuss the merits and demerits of the proposal. I've always been very clear that we are determined to represent our residents' views. And I think in many respects, your views are sincere, as I say, and they are legitimate concerns that we also want TfL to respond to. We want to hear whether TfL can respond and review what they have set out so far in light of things that perhaps residents are saying. So we want you to have the fullest dialogue possible with residents and indeed with TfL, and we will continue to go out facilitating that. And then, having listened to as many people as possible, we will come to a view. And that's what I've set out to you previously, and I hope that's consistent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to the Lydgates. I just want to put a bit of history into this argument. In 2013, the Council refused to allow the previous Mayor of London Cycle Superhighway 9 to move along, to be built along Kensington High Street, and it was supposed to join Hammersmith and Fulham and Westminster, so there was a complete east-west cycle route. A huge disappointment to the cycling community. Another aspect, several times over the last few years, the Council refused to impose 20-mile-an-hour limits on residential roads, which would make cycling far more pleasant. We have some kind of pilot now, but I'm unclear if this is being actually enforced at all. If not, it's completely tokenistic. I see some lights flashing on trees. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, and I've been fighting for this for years. So what I'm saying is a very tokenistic attitude. If you look at the accidents, if you compare accidents on Holland Park Avenue and Kensington High Street, there's a third more on Kensington High Street, which suggests that there are far more bicycles on Kensington High Street, and they need support there. Ken High Street has no weekday parking, and the shops are serviced from the rear, as you were saying. However, Holland Park Avenue is they're serviced from the front, and they need that parking. The shops rely on it. I remember a few years back, Notting Hill Improvement Group fought to improve the environment, finally getting the funds to realise their plans for central reservation and trees. 18 of these trees, all of them, are for the chop. The Mayor of London's Commissioner for Walking and Cycling, who I spoke to, told me he'd be willing to replace more trees than will be taken out, but I can't see where they'd go. If this is a genuine consultation, they will listen to all residents and businesses. And I trust the Mayor and RBKC will listen, think again, and act on residents' concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That then concludes the public speaking part of the meeting. So if you guys want to sit down, I shall hand back to the Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to DEMSOC for facilitating that part of the meeting. If we could move on to item 8. Sorry, I also want to say thank you very much to all the speakers for coming in and those who have replied. Petitions, item 8. Do councillors have any petitions to submit?
Yes.
Councillor Mills.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, Councillor Allison, or former Councillor Allison, very kindly read out the petition from the public gallery, but of course she can't present the petition. So I'm here formally on behalf of the ladies who are sitting in the back to present this petition to you. If I may, can I read the prayer formally? Can I also say that Alderman Buckmaster, who was also in this council, has sent in a letter and he is in support of this petition, and he would like me to read that letter out to you. It's very small. So if I may, I'm going to present the petition now, and the prayer is simply this.
Councillor Mills, the arrangements are that, of course, you're very welcome to read the petition. Could you present the letter to the officers?
Sorry, I present the petition, which is I read it out.
Yes, but there's no facility for reading.
Mr. Mayor, that is a decision for you. If you wish me to say to Alderman Buckmaster that you didn't wish to hear it, then I'm very happy so to do. I appreciate it's your first time, and I should have said congratulations.
Okay. If you wish to read it out, as long as it is short.
It is very short. I can show it to you, sir. So, if I may, can I read out the petition? And the petition goes like this. And again, as I said, many of the ladies are seated at the back. They've come here very specially so to do. They are infirm, immobile and elderly, but they're actually poster children for what I consider to be independent living and growing well in this borough. And the petition goes like this. We, the undersigned, petition the Council of the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea to use its best endeavours to protect our 29 homes which are located in the almshouses, also known as the Shepherd Trust, which are situated in Lansdowne Walk, Norland Ward, W11 3LN. Several of these 29 flats have been there since the 1950s. We, the present residents and beneficiaries, are vulnerable elderly women of limited means with roots throughout Kensington and Chelsea Borough. We must not be moved against our will out of the area. We implore the Cabinet and councillors to instruct its planning department to designate all the Shepherd Trust houses in Lansdowne Walk as assets of community value, to protect the buildings by designating that they have social and community use, thereby demonstrating the value Kensington and Chelsea places on housing its elders within the heart of the community and the importance that its long-term residents bring to the rich diversity of the borough. Please support the residents of the Shepherd Trust to stay in Lansdowne Walk. The residents have tagged the box over 2,000 signatures in 2 weeks, as you heard, Mr. Mayor, and they asked me to say that these are the colours of the suffragettes, in case you may not recognise them. Purple for loyalty and dignity, white for purity, and green for hope. And they hope that you might perhaps uphold those superb values of the suffragette movement. Alderman Buckmaster writes to you. He apologises for not being able to be here tonight to speak on behalf of the residents. He has a previous commitment, otherwise he would have come. And he writes, Dear Sirs, regarding the Shepherd Trust Lansdowne Walk, I am writing as a former councillor of the Royal Borough and one who has been mayor twice. The Shepherd Trust has long wanted to cash in on their properties in Lansdowne Walk and move its elderly residents out. When I was a councillor, I tried to protect these elderly people. The problem arises from the high value of real estate in Kensington. There have been innumerable instances of property owners seeking to benefit from this. However, the Council has an obligation to protect the whole community which it serves. This means that all residents, including the elderly, should be allowed to live and remain within the Royal Borough and should be encouraged to do so. This is particularly true of those of limited means. If the Royal Borough is to remain a vibrant community, then all sections of the community should be protected from those who seek to benefit from high property values. The area should not be allowed to disintegrate into a rich person's ghetto. I support the petition to designate the Shepherd Trust houses in Lansdowne Walk as assets of community value. I have enclosed a copy of his letter into the petition box, which perhaps someone ought to receive. Is there an officer to take it? Thank you, Ms. Gupta. The residents have also asked me to thank the honourable member of Kensington, who has been instrumental in helping them, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Executive advised me we have apologies of absence from Councillor Bennett, Councillor Marshall, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Palmer, and late arrival from Councillor Will. Does any member wish to speak to declare a disclosable pecuniary or other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? Councillor Will, I believe.
Thank you, Madam. There, apologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a good start, isn't it? And congratulations on your appointment and of that of your mayoress and deputy mayor. I know you'll be a great team, and I suspect you'll have a lot of fun as well. Thank you for indulging me in this slightly unusual way at this point in the evening. As you all know, I am stepping down from Cabinet to spend some time with my much-neglected family. But I did really very much formally want to put on the record my thanks to the team in Family and Children's Services who have supported me over the last 6 years, and in particular over the last 2 years. And I feel extremely lucky to have had such a fantastic, dedicated team supporting me. And I also wanted, on a personal note, to thank the leader of the council, who has shown me enormous support and friendship in the work that I've done over the last 9 years. And I continue to really thank her for being the leader of this council at a very, very difficult time, and for the sense of public duty she shows and the way she does it with such grace. So thank you.
Item 10, reports from council-side committees. Item 10, report from Administration Committee. I call upon the leader formally to move the reception of the report, and Councillor Lindsay to second.
I'd like to move, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to call paragraph 1, Borough and Area Governance Review. Members will note that 2 amendments have been circulated. Amendment 2 was received after the deadline for submission to reports and set out in Order 15. I understand that under Standing Order 42, the Council is prepared to suspend Standing Order 15 on this occasion to allow Amendment 2 to be considered. Is that moved? Is that seconded? Thank you. So is that agreed? I propose that after the speeches made by the leaders on this matter, the 2 amendments are moved and seconded. There will then be a general debate on the governance review before we move to the votes on the amendments and on the recommendations in the report. Councillor Lindsay.
In accordance with Standing Order 42, I wish to move that Standing Order 30 be suspended this evening to allow the leader and Councillor Mason up to 10 minutes each for their speeches on the governance review.
Councillor Loring.
I second.
The leader would like to speak to up for 10 minutes.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations once again on your appointment. And I hope it'll be a very successful year, not only for you, but for the office that you now hold. So I address my remarks to you tonight and to the whole of the Council chamber, because we are at a pivotal moment. We're nearly 2 years on from the Grenfell tragedy, and families continue to show great strength and dignity in designing their own support services. We're close to rehousing every family, with only 1 family now in a hotel, but we're not rushing people and we are not setting deadlines. With families moving into properties, we can begin to look forward and work with the NHS and central government to put in place the care and support people need to help turn bricks and mortar into a place where people can call home. But, Mr. Mayor, we're also at a pivotal point here in the Chamber and at the Town Hall. Tonight we're discussing and proposing fundamental changes to the way this council operates, the way we make decisions, the way we listen and work with residents, the way we make sure that the leadership team sitting either side of me are held to account. Tonight should be a discussion about the new ways of doing things, committing to the promises we have made to residents and outlining how we might get there. I hope that the discussion will be a positive one and we are all in the frame of mind to look forward. With me on my benches is my new leadership team announced on Monday. It is an example of the way I want the council to think and act, a mix of experience and knowledge with freshness and new ideas. I'd like to welcome Jem and Johnny to the team, two councillors elected for the very first time in the 2018 local elections. Okay. And I'd like to welcome Anne Siren, who's going to step into the crucial communities role, which will oversee the Grenfell recovery strategy and look at ways we can further strengthen our relationship with residents. We have so much to do, opportunities to grasp and challenges to face. So I've increased the leadership team to 10 and created a portfolio that is focused on the environment. It's one of our most important topics for our residents and something we're really going to be focusing on over the next 3 years. Tackling bad air quality, reducing waste and plastic, and playing our role in addressing climate change. Property has moved into the housing portfolio under Kim, so we can better engage with residents on what they want our communities to be, to look like, and to feel like. And it demonstrates, Mr. Mayor, that we are laser focused on delivering more affordable housing in this borough. And, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to take this opportunity to say a personal thank you to one of our longest-serving leadership team members who's stepping back to manage some specific projects in the borough and who has stepped out of the chamber at this critical moment. Never mind. I will say, even in her absence, over the last 6 years, Emma Will has done an incredible job in delivering outstanding services for young people and has supported schools in delivering excellent results year after year. She's been a great advisor to me and has always put residents, particularly the young, right at the heart of our agenda, standing up for them and championing their ideas. So she's stepping away from the leadership team, but she'll be continuing to help the council deliver 2 very important projects: our new special school at Balby and our Young People Foundation, where she's going to become a trustee. So thank you, Emma, in absentia. Mr. Mayor, as I said, this is a time of change, and I think I have the leadership team in place to continue the good start we've made over the last 12 months. I also said that this is a pivotal time at the Town Hall. It's a pivotal time for our relationships with our residents, who I also address this evening. The way we make decisions is already becoming more open, transparent and accountable. There is greater involvement of residents and representative organisations, with communities at the heart of everything we do. That is what we promised and is a key commitment in our council plan. But what will these changes mean for people? It will mean more money for residents and councillors to spend in their local areas, better public participation, making our meetings more accessible and getting out of the Town Hall and into our communities. Experimenting with the format of our meetings so people are encouraged to engage with us, whether they're good public speakers or quiet ones with the big ideas. Involving decision-making and increasing our transparency ever further, and tougher scrutiny to make sure we're held to account, with an overarching committee of senior councillors guiding the topics that will be explored with the help of residents. This is the second time I've spoken about strengthening scrutiny and changing our governance in this chamber. It's the second time the opposition benches seem to be indicating that change is possibly moving too fast for them. And my question to them is this: are you listening? Are you hearing what our residents want from us? It has been a year. We simply cannot wait until May 2020 to get this moving. We have to move forward and try and do things differently. We shouldn't be scared of trying things and seeing if they work. Residents are already on this journey with us, and in many places we are already making progress. We can learn from the past and we can embrace new ideas. We can modernise our methods. We are already actively changing our culture and our practice to make every part of the system more open to resident involvement, more transparent and easily understandable to every person. As we've seen tonight, we already provide speaking opportunities at full council meetings for residents to share their thoughts, ideas, experiences with all councillors. We've opened up our leadership team meetings to contributions from the room before important decisions are taken. Public realm scrutiny is examining how to make the pre-application process for planning fair, clear and transparent for everyone. A new approach to planning committees being piloted, where both supporters and opponents of planning applications can ask questions of each other. A consultation on our commitment to community involvement in planning will begin next month. We're recruiting a new citizens panel for this borough, and we intend to have our own youth parliament up and running next year. We want to develop a charter for public participation, setting out clear rights and responsibilities and the Council's commitment to them. And Mr Mayor, to make the business of the Council more transparent and easier to understand, we want to improve how we communicate about future decisions. We want to change the definition of what a key decision is, so it more closely aligns to what ordinary people understand to be a big decision with significant impact. This will mean reforming our practice by putting decisions on the forward plan earlier and using modern technology to enable residents to access information that's relevant to them more easily. And to ensure the leadership of this Council is held properly to account, we're proposing changes to the way scrutiny works. This includes a new overview and scrutiny committee to help prioritise what matters most and secure greater public involvement in the whole process, from identifying issues and scoping reviews to participating in evidential
One
sessions.
minute, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. I said this before, but it's something I truly believe in. The most important role for a councillor is community leadership. We need all of you in this chamber to stand up and be counted and help me. Help this leadership team, help the chairs of our committees, and help our officers set these changes in motion. Let's not wait for 2020. Let's get moving and let's start giving residents what they have clearly asked for.
Councillor Mason.
I don't think, and I hope, the Leader of the Council doesn't mean to sound as if she is teaching some aberrant children some truth that she has gained from some oracle. That's what it sounds like. She's talking down to the people in the north. It is the Labour group that campaigned over many years to improve and develop scrutiny into a vehicle that works for residents and that increasingly acted to hold the executive to account, even though past executives consistently refused to listen and made a series of disastrous decisions as a result. We North Kensington councillors, more than any other councillors in this chamber, are motivated to make sure that this council never again ignores the people who elected us, that they are listened to and what they say is acted on, and that we build a scrutiny model that really does hold the leadership team to account and that involves residents at grassroots level down at the wards. We are especially strongly motivated, Mr Mayor, because the 72 people who perished in the Grenfell Tower fire were residents who we were elected to represent, and we knew many of them. And we also represent many of the 11,000 traumatised people living in the vicinity of Grenfell Tower. For 23 months since the fire, we have joined the survivors and their families on the monthly silent walks, remembering the victims who always call for justice. And like the communities we represent, many of us on this side remembered the fire and what happened in the weeks and months after, like it was only yesterday. Yesterday! So I took offence when Councillor Campbell said at the April meeting that the Labour group, I quote, was holding back change and wanted to delay governance reforms. She told us that residents had voted Conservative in 2018 elections and that the majority group would continue to bring change to the Council. She has amnesia on the 2 years' work we have done working to drag this Council into the 21st century. What she meant in April was, we Labour councillors have had our say on scrutiny, and so has our communities, so we should just get with our programme and move on. North Kensington did not vote Conservative or support your manifesto. They supported the Labour manifesto, saying North Kensington should just suck it up because the Conservative group won more seats, is what Nick Paget-Brown said after the 2010 election standing in this place. He said this when we opposed his estate's regeneration strategy, partly because residents could be socially cleansed, like those ladies earlier, from their homes against their will. Labour councillors spent decades feeding residents' concerns into hundreds of scrutiny and other council meetings, full council and a myriad of so-called consultations. The council rarely, if ever, acted on these issues we or our residents raised here. In fact, we and they were often treated with derision and rudely abused in this chamber and in other committees. So, with all due respect, we do not require lectures from the leader of the council about the need to connect with our residents and find out what concerns them. We have done that for decades. Councillor Campbell called on councillors to show respect, act with integrity and work with each other to make change happen. Fine words, Mr Mayor, but when opposition councillors are working to understand how the proposed scrutiny model improves on what we have now, we call this scrutiny. Is it showing respect to dismiss what they say and accuse us of holding back change or of kicking the can down the road? The four important questions to ask when considering any part of these proposals are: 1. Is it an improvement on the existing scrutiny model? 2. How does it answer the wishes of residents and community groups in the borough? 3. How does it work? And is it ready to go live? Then, is the new model developed enough to do the job the proposals say it will do? And is the model designed to deal with the issues residents will want scrutinised, what we must legally scrutinise, and the issues we would be wise to scrutinise? To explain, when I asked Councillor Campbell where issues ranging from policing, the fire service, care homes and family and children's services will be looked at, there is a significant list. Our Director of Governance and Coordination responded that prioritisation is a fundamental principle of the proposed changes and that unless scrutiny activity is prioritised, there will not be time or capacity for issues that most require scrutiny to receive proper attention. That's the kernel of what they're saying here. We can argue which issues require most scrutiny, Mr Mayor, and question why resourcing will be inadequate to do more scrutiny as recommended by the Centre for Public Scrutiny. But this demonstrates a flaw in the model. I can just hear some council QC arguing this point in court if a scandal or tragedy happens in a care home or in a service used by children or young people. But, Your Honour, it was not one of the priority services we wanted to scrutinise, Your Honour. So how can you find us guilty? I hope the backbenchers panel will bear these things in mind when they do the rounds of scrutiny committees and meet, presumably, officers during the day. Other questions that come to mind. Why are we moving at breakneck speed to implement before we are certain the model is properly ready to go live? Saying this is just a first step and that we'll build the new model as we go along is what the Council said when, against all scrutiny advice, we signed into the Tri-Borough BT Managed Services contract in 2013 that we were building together with BT as we went along, and it proved absolutely unworkable and catastrophic and lost the Council about £9 million. Have we carried out adequate consultation with enough residents to allow us to decide exactly what form of security and area governance that we want? Well, Councillors Kassim, Ali and Emma Dent-Code will expand on this when they speak to the Labour amendment shortly. Is the Council ready to go live with the key decision improvements in September that the leader goes on about? How are departments being reorganised to ensure that when key decisions appear on the forward plan, they have reports attached as opposed to a description of the key decision itself? I now have a good understanding of how try and buy borough procurement works. The system rarely works in tandem with scrutiny, and there is no plan yet apart from words on paper given to the leader to read out. It just isn't there at the moment. No formal ward or multi-ward devolved residents-led bodies are being proposed, except an aspiration to establish a Notting Dale Partnership Board. Councillor Blakeman would have spoke to. Were she here? I don't think she's here.
She's back.
Oh, you're here. And Councillor Blakeman will therefore speak. I know she wants to speak on this issue. There was significant demand for this form of devolution from North Kensington residents and local representative groups. You heard the Notting Hill Social Council, Joe Batty, say so tonight, and many say their suggestions have been ignored. Certainly we've seen many of those at my committee and others, and they just didn't hit the light of day. This is why the Administration Committee, the Governance Review Panel and other council meetings have increasingly had dwindling numbers of residents attending. They think, and they tell us this, they think the council is going back to not listening even though you say you are not. You want to get this done. These people should just move on and get with the programme. Am I right to believe the council are selling city living local life to residents as governance devolution to mask the fact you don't want to accede to real devolution, which is what you know they are asking for? And the leader said she wants to give them what they are asking for. Especially in North Kensington, they're asking for that, and the leader knows this. As it happens, City Living Local Life is already a devolved budget to the wards, and whilst there is nothing wrong with enhancing it, it does not represent the devolution that residents have asked for, and the leader knows this well. What they want are representative elected bodies that may be different in each ward. We've been through this at the Governance Review Panel, where they could actually scrutinise or be consulted on the general mainstream services of the council in their area or across the council, budgets, transport, whatever. And certainly they will be definitely consulted in what happens in their own areas. So the questions remain.
1 minute, Councillor.
Is this an improvement on the existing scrutiny model? Does it represent what residents asked for? How does it work? And is it ready to go live? Until we have firm answers to these questions, we should take more time to work out what we are going to do. And why shouldn't we do that? Why do we want to move into perhaps a flawed system? I mean, the document that went to the last Administration Committee had about 3 or 4 flaws in it, including the City Living Local Life section, which presented as a new initiative that somehow was just 20 grand stuck in the pocket of councils who work out what they want to do with it, which doesn't happen. So we on this side will wait to see what proposals look like when they come back to this council at the July meeting for decision, before we decide to support them or not. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we call scrutiny. We have a right to scrutinise what the council is thinking of doing, because we're all going to have to sign up to it. That's not kicking the can down the road or pushing change
Councillor
back.
Mason, can I remind you that you've gone beyond the limit of your time?
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. The next item is that can I now call upon amendment number 1? Councillor Rendell, would you like to speak, please?
I beg to move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Evans?
Second and speak, may I or not? Then I second. I'll speak later.
Could you just second, and then we'll come to you after Councillor Rendell has spoken. So, can I ask Councillor Rendell to speak for up to 5 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think we are still learning as well, Janet, so I did the same thing last time, so don't worry. It's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move this amendment as a member of the Administrative Committee regarding the report that is in the papers. As mentioned, it is recommended from the Governance Panel, which is based on comments by the Governance Review, that the Council establishes an overarching overview and scrutiny committee. This committee will prioritise the government's scrutiny work, ensuring that scrutiny focuses on achieving the outcomes that really matter to local people, which I note that what the leader mentioned earlier. This proposed committee will hold the executive to account, will scrutinise a State of the Borough presentation by the leader, and will also prioritise other scrutiny work programmes, such as feedback from all councillors, risk, performance data, statutory requirements, major programmes that need delivering by the council, and of course, feedback from the public on issues that really, really matter to everyone. It's currently proposed, as is written, that to consult with the existing scrutiny committee chairman during May, June and July, as well as holding a series of residents' conferences to seek the views of people about what the priorities of the scrutiny should be for the coming year. Under the initial scheme, the chair and vice chairman designate of the suggested overview and scrutiny committee would review the outcome of this consultation. However, I don't think that would particularly work. Expecting 2 members to review the outcome of these consultations in order to prepare a detailed proposal is rather burdensome. So it's best to receive more assistance from members to conduct this review. Therefore, this amendment proposes appointing a panel of 4 non-executive members to oversee the process of consultation, feeding that opinion back to the admin committee for a full council consideration on the 24th of July, and to consider part of the consultation how all non-exec members can have the opportunity to serve on scrutiny if they wish, more than one scrutiny committee if they wish. And I note that the the second point of Amendment A is similar to Labour's amendment, which is to appoint a panel of 4 non-executive members. So I think we're all in agreement on that front. More non-executive members will be able to consult existing chairs and residents about what is proposed and what the committee should focus on. This would allow for a wider range of views, I think, that can all be fed into the full council report by July. We must be seen to listen to residents. With the change at the council policy that we're currently under viewing, and everyone who's commented on the proposal so far, the recommendations of the governance panel, that was cross-party, I may add, and the need to change for the sooner rather than later, I believe this amendment will achieve those aims and do the best for everyone in this borough. I move this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans, I understand you'd like to speak. Thank you. I'm sorry if the process has been a bit confusing.
I apologise for my lack of protocol. I was overexcited.
That's right. Good.
I would like to congratulate you and Councillor Idris on your new positions. I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job. And I would like to thank the past mayor, Marie-Therese Rossi, and Mo Bakhtir, who I've worked with, and for the wonderful work and generosity that they brought to the job. We were able to work together, and we appreciate everything that you've both done for us. I would also like to congratulate our leader, because she brought this exciting proposal to us, and it works. There's nothing wrong with it. We want to get moving. We don't want to wait till 2020. We want to be positive. We want to be proactive. And we want to help our residents. That's why we're here. That's why we were elected. There is no reason to be negative, to talk about 2010, what somebody said. What is that about? Let's talk about 2019. That is why we're here. And this is what we...
Can we please listen to Councillor? Can we please listen to Councillor? Can we please listen to Councillor Evans, please?
I agree, and because of Grenfell, we want to get moving. We want to bring the change. We want to bring the positive new attitudes. We want to bring the new leadership. We want to have new ideas about scrutiny, and that's exactly in memory of the people. We would like to move on and to get a positive program going of scrutiny in our borough. I think we should all work together. It's a win-win situation on both sides. Let's not be negative. Let's go for this. There's non-executive people can be involved. We are addressing the public. And what's wrong with this program? It's all good, and I thank the leader for bringing this to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I shall now call amendment number 2. 4 minutes to move amendment number 2. Councillor Ali.
Please, yes, we'd like to move on.
Thank you. Councillor Dent Code. 4 minutes, like to second.
I beg to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ali, would you like to speak for up to 5 minutes? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I firstly start with congratulating you for winning the election, you and your Deputy Mayor, and I wish you all the best and will do whatever I can to support your office. May I also like to thank former Mayor and her Deputy for the great work they have done, and thank you very much for reaching out to many communities for the work you have done, and once again, hopefully you will have a wonderful time. Mr. Mayor, I would like to say Ramadan Mubarak to thousands of our residents in my ward, Delgado ward, as well as across the borough and the UK as a whole. It's the holy month of Ramadan, and many Muslims in our borough are fasting. Mr. Mayor, winning an election and securing a majority is the first stage of democracy. But leading with a clarity and serving those who voted for you and those who haven't, and setting up a functioning scrutiny system is a pinnacle of democratic process, which this council is in need of. Mr. Mayor, a good scrutiny committee comes from working collectively and effectively with our residents, taking the time it needs to get a representative outcome. This council will achieve a better scrutiny committee by improving engagement with our residents and developing a deep understanding of the community's needs and aspirations. However, Mr. Mayor, consultation that has been done for the new scrutiny committee has not been done properly, and in fact, less than 1.9% of our population of about 160,000 have been consulted for the new scrutiny committee, new scrutiny program, and the 4 council plan consultations in a short period of time. Therefore, the consultation process is inadequate to deliver a scrutiny program fit for 21st century local authority, and as it does not reflect the voices and the concerns of a wide borough-wide residents. In order to ensure a consultation that's fit for purpose, this council must increase the number of residents being consulted for the scrutiny system, which is about less than 2%, to 15 to 20%. To increase the consultation, it will allow us to hear more about our residents, the needs of our residents. We've heard now the people who were here before, from south of the borough to the north of the borough. We have to give people a chance to contribute to the new system and how they would like to be governed, as well as to be the scrutiny system to be done. So this amendment is requiring to expand the time scale for the borough-wide consultation to March 2020. And obviously the second point agrees with the first amendment, which is to appoint 4 non-executive members. Mr. Mayor, whatever comes from the system that we create will serve this community, and we cannot allow to rush and make decisions on the absence of our residents. This council has gone through a difficult time for the last 2 years, and for that we must make sure that steps that we're taking now is taking account to the residents and not just people from one side of the borough, but all sides of our borough. And it's the leadership's responsibility to get the support for those who have voted for and those who haven't voted for. We understand they have the majority, but they have to seek the majority of the wider borough. And 1.9% of 160,000 residents does not represent. The numbers do not lie. I will ask the council to take this second amendment. And if you could excuse me, I've been fasting all day. Speaking is not really the best time of the week for this time. And once again, I'd like to have a sip of water, but I've got 2 more hours to go, or maybe an hour and a half. So I would like to conclude that, and I would say to everyone, have a wonderful Ramadan. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali, for speaking. We now move on to the debate. We have 9 speakers who indicated that they would like to speak, and I'm going to ask them in time. I will say that the allowable time is up to 5 minutes, but if you have points to make and you can get them across in less, there'll be time for more people to speak within the limits that we have. So please could Councillor Durian speak, if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, may I congratulate you and the Deputy Mayoress for your election this evening, as well as may I say Mother Emma, who I'm sure will be an excellent chaplain to you, and best wishes for the year ahead, regretfully she's not so longer there with us. Mr. Mayor, the Borough and Area Governance Panel met in public 7 times to discuss changes to how the Council is run from the perspective of both leadership and scrutiny. Now, whilst attendance at these meetings was not in the large numbers that we may have wished for, I believe that is far from being a reflection of disinterest in the part of our residents. Instead, many simply expect the councillors whom they elected last year to be able to work together and be up to the task of making these changes and letting them judge us on the results. Now, these results will not be the details of our governance arrangements, but whether they see evidence of better, more informed decisions with wider input and consent from across the community. Perhaps most importantly, whether they see a bigger voice given to those who find themselves having to make the most day-to-day use of council provision in their lives. Now, good scrutiny will be critical to much of this, and so I welcome the amendment moved by Councillor Brendel on creating a panel to decide how best the new committee should be set up. If passed, I would encourage the panel to consider how we can balance the goal of early contributions to policy development with the primary scrutiny goal of holding executive to account and learning from past decisions. To consider how best the needs of different parts of the borough can be reflected, and to consider carefully how the best level of scrutiny, time and space can continue to be devoted to Grenfell recovery. Now, whilst many of us as ward councillors already seek to do our best to hear from our residents through surgeries, residents' association meetings and other events, the proposed ward forums with increased budget and officer support are most welcome. To be successful, recommendations emerging from these forums must be carefully tracked, seen to be tracked, and linked up with the functions of scrutiny and the leadership team. Now, I have broadly shared my own view that area committees led by ward councillors should eventually have some kind of constitutional footing, and I remain of that persuasion. However, there is no reason to delay or stop the process at this point. The recommendations reached by the governance panel after much consideration are a positive step forward, an improvement on what we currently have, in line with the publication by the Centre of Public Scrutiny, let's not forget, and I would encourage everyone to support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Spalding, would you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to you and to Madam Deputy Mayor on your new appointments. Our residents are really going to welcome this idea about ward and area forums, as in 3.19 recommendation 4. It's encouraging to see that the CLL funds will continue and, in fact, will be increased up to 3 times, possibly through the new neighbourhood SIL. And this responds well to the points the residents themselves made at the Public Realm Conference, when they said that pre-application planning processes should look at the use of SIL within the wards. So that's very much what the residents want, and they don't want to hang about with it. These ward forums, with local resident representation, with real funding, with localised spending priorities, and admin support from the Council, will be a major step forward in devolved local governance, involving residents at the heart of decision-making, inviting them to take part, and listening to every voice. We've got no reason to delay on that at all. However, recommendation 3 on improvements to scrutiny is even more welcome. When we set out with public realm scrutiny 2 years ago, as an engineer, I could see the need for change, both in innovation and technical content of scrutiny, and improvements in the scrutiny process, and that these would lead to organisational change for the better. An adaptive learning system can only function with feedback, and we know this has to come from our residents, also from external experts, from the professionalism of our officers and from councillors. Public Realm set out to involve these residents' contributions. We called them to the table as often as possible. We encouraged them to attend these sessions. We got amateur experts identified. We got their passions and their obsessions were harnessed. And support was given for residents to ask scrutinising questions and to make innovative suggestions which work from their point of view. The residents' point of view has often been missing at scrutiny, and the new scrutiny review panel, chaired by Councillor Hammond, with Councillor Bennett, Councillor Wade and me, if you so approve, will report back to your next full council on the way ahead for scrutiny. The public realm scrutiny also developed the idea of themed meetings, which took on the nature of specialised and detailed seminars. Working groups were encouraged to be cross-cutting, to work with other scrutiny committees. Residents' conferences were organised, and they were attended by scores of keen and willing local experts who have got so much to offer. They were listened to by scrutiny and by leadership and by officers. By making more accurate recommendations to the executive, we hope to foster the idea of the council as a learning organisation operating on feedback. This is the bicentennial year of the birth of Prince Albert. In fact, his birthday is in August. But it's fitting we celebrate those Victorian ideas of progress and evolution. And this was born in Kensington. It's part of the Great Exhibition. It's part of our cultural offering to the world. The role of scrutiny and feedback is in any learning organisation, and every management book will tell you how this works, and it does work.
Councillor Spalding, 1 minute.
Our voters and our residents are our customers, and the customers are always right. The council and then the borough itself becomes an intelligent, an empirical and a democratic learning system. This model of change has been celebrated throughout the world. So cybernetics was launched in this borough in 1972 in the Man in the Moon pub in the King's Road. I was there, I was a founder member. And this principle of organisational change and feedback has come full circle. So both Prince Albert's contribution and the Cybernetics Society, board in this borough, have got something to say about this. From Victorian Kensington, we've inherited progress and evolution. And from 1970s Chelsea, we inherit intelligent learning and organisational adaptation. So I commend to you all of this programme for change at the council, and I would ask you to vote for it. I've been waiting 40 years for it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Spalding. Councillor Hammond, who wishes to speak for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, sir, and congratulate to you, sir, and Madam Deputy Mayor on your new appointments. Sir, away from this chamber over which you preside in its theatre, and away from the cut and thrust of election campaigns, which I obviously can't mention, scrutiny committees offer an opportunity for in-depth examination of policy problems and of issues of genuine concern and to our residents, as well as holding the executive to account on decision-making that they're in the process of taking. I'm also a huge admirer of the Parliamentary Select Committee system that's been in operation in its current form since 1980. And it's produced a lot of very detailed cross-party working and some very powerful reports. And I therefore read the original version of the governance proposals last month with a great deal of interest. And I had a number of observations on them, and I thought that the opportunity that these proposals present gives us the chance for increased depth of study into the problems of the day that face us. Sitting on 3 of the current 6 scrutiny committees over the last year, I've observed that the current committees are trying to do, in my view, too much. Many of the agendas are overloaded. There's very little time to go into depth on subjects, and very few recommendations come out of those scrutiny committees, however useful the discussions are for the short times that we're able to have them. This proposal does offer the opportunity to go into depth on policy development, and I know that there have been a couple of very good exceptions to that, and I'm going to pick out the short-term holiday letting report done by Councillor Press and Councillor Spalding a couple of years ago. That is a really excellent report that's gained some traction and some recommendations. And I know we're about to get something out of public realm on planning as well, the pre-app which the leader referred to, which I know is going to be very good. Follow-up to these recommendations is also key, though. You can't just write a piece of shelfware. It has to be followed up, so that's another challenge. But at the same time, while we're doing this extra depth, what we can't do is lose the scrutiny role. And now, it might suit some if the executive are not held to account to the depth that is currently done, but I submit that it wouldn't be in the best interest of the Council overall if the opportunity to ask awkward questions is not there. But there is a significant challenge with 4 new committees proposed. How will those resources be deployed? How will the Overview and Scrutiny Committee distinguish between problems that are urgent and problems that are important? How will they give weight to topics that exercise the residents keenly against topics which are hardly noticed by residents but on which the Council spends an enormous amount of money and are therefore very important? And in putting that critique or something like that critique in writing in April is probably why I've been given the job of going onto this scrutiny panel and indeed chairing it for my sins, and I will of course do my utmost to produce a good result on that in the time available. And I'm very pleased to be joined by my friends Councillor Spalding and Bennett and by Councillor Wade from the opposition benches to do that work. I will say I'm a little disappointed, notwithstanding my pleasure at working with Councillor Wade for the next couple of months. I am disappointed that the Labour Party, the official opposition, has declined to put somebody forward. And I'm disappointed for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I suspect that means that whatever result we come out with, they will vote against it. And I think they will come out with one of 2 lines. Watch this in 2 months' time. The change is too much, or the change is too little. And we already know that they want to have it next year or the year after.
Councillor Hammond, 1 minute.
I'm grateful, Mr Mayor. That's what will happen in 2 months' time. I'm secondly disappointed because there are a number of members of the opposition who are very good at scrutiny, who've got a lot to add, and I would like to hear from them. And in fact, I would like to hear from everybody, and I will be writing to every member of this chamber after this meeting to encourage you to submit your views to us if the amendment passes and if the main motion passes. And I look forward to working on this for the next 2 months and engaging with as many members as possible from all sides of the chamber who wish to be involved in it. Thank you, sir.
Well done. Thank you. Can I call on Councillor Blakeman to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was actually knocked off my bicycle once by the landlord of the Man in the Moon pub, but that was a few years ago now. I'm really upset to hear all these fine words about how we're going to start listening to residents, and then to read that we are nevertheless going to go ahead with setting up a strategic partnership board for Nottingdale Ward alone. Now, I've spoken on this at various forums to point out to you that the Grenfell Tower did not affect just the residents of Nottingdale Ward. it didn't just affect the 11,000 people who are traumatised. It affected almost everybody in North Kensington. Now, it may be that you don't wish to devolve power to North Kensington, but if you take a simple look at the map, even 500 metres from Grenfell Tower takes in part of Norland Ward and part of St Helens Ward, and also part of Hammersmith. So to set up a strategic partnership board just for Notting Dale is actually going to continue to foster the divisions in our communities that you have worked so hard to ensure in the last 2 years. Now, I keep being told that it is the government which insists that this Notting Dale Partnership Board is set up. The government is an awful long way away from here. Let's not forget it was the government that said everybody from Grenfell Tower who survived would be rehoused within 3 weeks. Some of them are still not housed. So the government actually doesn't know what's best for this committee, this community. Please reconsider setting up just a one-ward board to deliver Grenfell scrutiny recovery. It won't. You've got to take in most of North Kensington, at least Norland Ward and St Helens Ward, as well as Notting Dale.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Bakhtiar, would you...
Councillor Hammond said in his speech that the Labour Party would not participate in the non-executive panel. The reason there is no Labour member on the panel at the moment is because they all have day jobs, and we were told that it's not just evening work this panel will have to do, but your own Chief Whip told us it will be a significant amount of day work, and therefore people cannot take 2 months off their day jobs at the moment. That's unless the council wants to pay them, of course. So all of our backbenchers who have got a lot less backbenchers than you have, they have got day jobs and they are unable to participate during the day, obviously, because they work for a living.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. We hear what you've said. Can I call Councillor Bakhtiar to speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The main reason that we are going through this governance review is because we had Grenfell Tower national disaster. And yet, we forgot to mention who is representing the survivors and its secondary victims in this chamber. Mr. Mayor, before Christmas, a lady who lived a minute away from Grenfell Tower and was very deeply involved in the aftermath, committed suicide. She was not the only one, and most probably not going to be the last one too. We meant to be going through a long and slow reconciliation process, bring peace and build trust with our residents, but instead we are doing the exact opposite. In the past few years, I have noticed that the way this council is trying to reach out to our residents is a negative way, meaning publicizing an event, a meeting or consultation on a website and wait for people to react to it. We have a large number of our residents who are very experienced in all fields and are willing to help and provide free advice, and most probably have solutions to most of our issues. But they are disengaged, or the council simply ignoring them. This consultation has not been communicated well enough and did not reach everyone. We need to give it as much time as it needs to reach everyone. We now have the opportunity to start a new way and start a positive wave of campaign to connect with those who are disengaged and bring them on board. You could probably take your decision without going through the hassle of any talks or negotiations because you have the numbers. But Grenfell changed things forever in this borough, and you shouldn't do things because you have the numbers. To proceed, you need to reassess the majority and minority concepts. Our intakes are vital for the reconciliation process. Even Councillor Linda Wade's, she's the only councillor representing one party, is vital. She's an experienced councillor being here. I urge you not to rush it few months, 7, 8 months, doesn't make a difference. And I think prejudgment not a good thing, Councillor Hannan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Bakhtiar. Councillor Thalasitis, would you wish to speak on this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I forgot to congratulate you and your fantastic, glamorous Deputy Mayor, Councillor Idris, as well. And also to note my thanks to Councillor Rossi and to Councillor Hargreaves and Councillor Bakhtiar for their fantastic year of service too. I was very fortunate to be a part of the governance panel and now to recommend the recommendations that we have proposed. One of the biggest reasons why I support it is because coming in as a fresh pair of eyes, it builds on a lot of the best work that I've seen within the Council. In the Family and Children's Scrutiny Committee, I helped to run a working group in relation to the review of youth services. And that was something that was really, I think, positive. We went out into the community, members of both sides of this chamber. We spoke to people, we heard what they wanted, and we were then able, at an early stage, to make recommendations that were responding directly to things that we had heard at these events. And I think what this proposal allows for is for us to do much more of that, to be out there and speaking to residents, and to do scrutiny that is resident-facing and much more dynamic, and makes it less town hall-centric. I think those are good things. In relation to what I heard at the meetings, I think what we have proposed is reflective of what I have heard. I'm satisfied that we have gone out and we have made a real effort to communicate with residents and with members of both sides of this chamber and on this panel. And I would like to see us take these forward. I think there was a clear term of reference or understanding that our panel intended to make recommendations at this stage, so I'm bemused by Labour's suggestion that this has now been done at breakneck speed. That's why I won't be supporting their amendment. But I just want to say that I think this is a positive step forward that builds on some of the best work that I've been fortunate to feel a part of on this council, and that it gives a greater capacity for backbenchers to do likewise in the future.
Can I ask, before Councillor Lowry leaves the chamber, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've been advised that technically we need to ask the two whips if they would like an extension, because of I've been advised that the mayor-making ceremony is considered to be part of this meeting, and therefore if we're going beyond 3 hours, we need agreement between both of the whips that should be the case. So if you could formally move that. Oh, is that agreeable to everybody that we continue to 9:30? Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
To be till 9:30, Mr. Mayor.
No, sorry. For up till 9:30. Sorry. Correct. Thank you for correcting me on that. Okay. Now, I think the next person who's listed to speak is Councillor Woodger. Would you wish to speak on this issue?
Good evening. As a member of the Administration Committee, I'm very pleased to be supporting this proposal for area governance and scrutiny changes. I will say congratulations to you, Mr. Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the previous Mayor and her Deputy for their service they've had here. Yes, as a newer councillor, it's been a year on the Adult Social Care and Health Scrutiny Committee, I've noticed that we do some good activities. One of the most rewarding things I did on that committee was going to the Amy McGrath Centre, which is a care facility where they look after young disabled adults. And I found that very rewarding, and I wrote a report on that. That sort of activity is what we want to do more of, getting out there in the community. One thing I've sort of noticed about scrutiny in general is things are coming almost far too quickly in front of us. It's almost like a rabbit in the headlights, where you can't make a sort of judgment on what's in front of you accurately. Whereas if you're looking more far ahead, actually you can scrutinise and potentially change what's coming. And that's exactly the sort of thing this scrutiny will do. I don't think delay is a good idea. I'm disappointed my own ward councillor for Delgado wishes to delay this process. I think actually it's much better that we spend quality time. It's not the amount of time we spend on this, but it's the quality of time we spend. So, yeah, I think these are good changes, and we should support this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lindsay, would you wish to speak?
My congratulations to you on your election, and also my thanks to Councillor Rossi and to Councillor Bakhtiar on the year that they have just had, actually in Councillor Rossi's case, 2 years. Mr Mayor, the purpose of scrutiny, almost by definition, is to scrutinise and to challenge decisions. I remember a number of years ago, former alderman, or current alderman, and former councillor Buckmaster, who was strongly involved in scrutiny for many years, making the point that pre-decision scrutiny was by far and away the most effective form of scrutiny. But Councillor Hammond was absolutely right when he said, based on his experience of being on 3 out of the 6 scrutiny committees, that we are doing far too much. We need to focus, as scrutiny, on what is really important. Many of the some 200 key decisions that come through are not that important, in particularly a number of the leases. Conversely, some issues actually ought to get significantly more time and focus than is currently the case. So I strongly support the proposed changes. And clearly, as is said in the proposals, if they are not working, we can review after 18 months and then decide how best to proceed. My second point is about time. There is, Mr Mayor, rarely a right time to do anything. There may be reasons to wait, to consult more, for more information, for more resources. But, Mr Mayor, I want to say that actually for officers and others to have consulted 1.9% of the 160,000 residents in the last year or so is impressive. The idea that we can increase that from about 2% to 15 to 20% in bullet point 1 of the Labour Party suggestion defies credulity. And the idea that it's going to have a significantly different output in terms of what they actually want, I really cannot believe. In reality, Mr Mayor, waiting often means delay for no benefit. It means hope deferred, and it means broken promises. And last, and I shall be brief on this, yes, I think like many, I favour more involvement and participation by residents in their wards. Clearly, wards differ. No one size is going to fit all. But ultimately, councillors are elected. And as such, we have certain rights and certain obligations and certain duties, particularly, for example, spending and our decision at the annual budget as to what our council tax should be. That means actually that some things cannot be delegated. But in the process of people becoming more politically involved, if that means that more people put themselves forward for elected office, I would say that would be a very good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call Councillor Williams to make a short contribution?
Mayor, and congratulations on assuming office today. I'd like to first comment on the proposal to increase support for members to hold small-scale public consultation and events and meetings. We're already doing this in Redcliffe. We've had 2 such this year, and I'd like to thank Robert Shepherd and his team for supporting us in the design and printing of leaflets to publicise these. I don't think the report says anything about the distribution. In some cases, it will need something like Royal Mail, but in our case, we basically push them through letterboxes, and I do commend that to your colleagues because you get to see where the broken paving stones are, if you don't know already. Most of my remarks are going to be about scrutiny. I welcome the amendment moved by Councillor Rendell because I must say I thought the wording was ambiguous, but in the original proposal it would seem to suggest that the chairman of the audit committee should not be involved in the scrutiny process, and I think that would be unfortunate. I want to talk really about two areas of scrutiny. First, health scrutiny, which I've been involved with for some years. And I was concerned with the original proposals because the idea of commissions rather than standing committees, I think, meant that I couldn't see how we were going to effectively continue to deliver that statutory responsibility. So I am greatly encouraged by the amendments that have been made. We'll have a standing committee, and I think that way we'll be able to respond, in particular, both from concerns from the community, which I think under Councillor Freeman's leadership we've done very effectively in recent months, and also proposals for changes and restructuring the services from the NHS. But I think that committee, and obviously its responsibility is going to have to be wider than just ASC and health. It will perhaps include public protection, which is what Westminster do. Will, I'm sure, have to meet more than 4 times a year. The other thing I wanted to comment on was budget scrutiny, which is mentioned specifically. That, I think, is something which, over the recent years, we've been doing less effectively, and that's because, I'm sorry to say, I think less good information has been provided to members. I mean, who would actually want to discuss a budget without knowing what the expected outturn for the current year is? And one year I persuaded the previous chief executive to provide that information to scrutiny, and that seems to have dropped. But I know that Councillor Wheel is concerned to improve this, and I welcome that. But I think bringing the budget scrutiny process together under one group, under the Central Committee, is definitely going to be an improvement. I think it will lead to more effective scrutiny at a time when things are ever more challenging. But I do think it's also important for this new group to engage with the leadership team and officers in the autumn to agree the format of information that's been presented to them, rather than just waiting for the information to appear in January and then find that they don't really have what you wanted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor-Smith, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I wasn't intending to speak, and I'll be very brief, acknowledging Councillor Ali's hardship of not having any water. So, yes, I just really, also, I'm sorry, I don't want to sort of impurge on Purda, but I mean, having given you a congratulation to your Deputy Mayor in terms of your appointment, having listened to congratulations to outgoing councillors and also Elizabeth, I'd also, in fear of praising the vacated seats in the front row of the Labour group, and acknowledge that the hard work of both Councillor Atkinson, Councillor Blakeman and Councillor Monica Cross. I'm sorry if I'm risking you being, by saying that, risking you being expelled from the Labour Party. And I know that I will continue to get challenges from you in the future. But I think the point really is to say that the importance of scrutiny really is down to bringing people to account, and that's down to the quality of the people that are in this room and the effort that they're prepared to make on these committees. And I've always said that I'm probably the most scrutinised person in this council, but I've always appreciated those challenges, and I welcome the fact that that's now being extended to people outside of the council chamber and to members of residence. And thank you for the prompting as part of scrutiny from your signs at the back. So I think all I would like to say is on this is that I attended the admin committee on the 7th of May, and it did get a little bit farcical in terms of the debate that we were having on this report because of the continued abstention that was coming from any comment on what was being presented to the meeting. And this was very much picked on by residents who were sitting in those meetings. And it makes me smile, when we're talking about kicking this up the road till March 2020, or expecting to have 20% of our residents respond, which in my ward, would be 800 people, and I can assure you we will not get 800 people to respond on the issue of governance. But I was struck by the fact that we went through the recommendations, and I think it's quite important just to repeat those. Is recommendation number 1, making it easy to find out what's going on and get involved. Now, I'd like to see from the opposition party who's going to put their hand up and object to that. I mean, that's a very sensible thing. Recommendation number 2, if I may go on, is focusing on things that matter most. I mean, this seems to be really basic, effective things, which, again, who's going to object to that? Number 3, improvements in scrutiny, public participation. Recommendation number 4, involving people from local areas, including our back row at the back here. You know, these are all really fundamentally sensible things that we should do. And it's a framework we're looking at, and we've indicated that this is not forever, but I think it does demonstrate that this council, and certainly on this side, Ed, advocates a change and to ensure that local people are involved in that decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Can I now invite Councillor Rendell to respond to amendment number 1 for up to 5 minutes? You're not going, okay? Councillor Ali, do you wish to respond to amendment number 2?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor. The party opposite kept saying the delay. We are not for delay. We want more people to be reached. This council wants to do the usual business as usual, and we know the consequence of business as usual. Grenfell will not have happened if we had a much scrutiny on this council. The disasters, the leadership, now they have changed it from cabinet to leadership. The same old business cannot continue. And I would like to tell them, if we can get more residents, I don't know why it is so hard for that for the leadership and the majority party to reach out more members or more residents of our borough, simply because they do not want to take the views. And I would like to say to them, do accept that we can reach more people, we can consult with them, we will find out what is good for them, not that you're making the decisions from this jumper out of the reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redding. Can I now call upon the leader to reply?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me that we have come to two things. The Labour Party either think that we're going too fast and that we've not consulted enough. Councillor Spalding's been waiting 40 years for something like this, but according to the Labour Party, we're going at breakneck speed. We have spent a year discussing these changes. We think that we should try it. We should suck it and see that we should move on. We should move on from just talking and actually do something. And as Councillor Evans said, you know, people will judge us by the results. We're happy to do that. And we've accepted one of the members of the panel's recommendation when they felt we were going slightly too fast. And we said, OK, let's have a panel. And I'm very glad that, should we have one, Councillor Hammond, Spalding and Bennett have agreed to be on it. You know, and we give it over to scrutiny to say, how should the scrutiny process be run? I'm not trying to run that. So 3 months should be enough for them to come up with some proposals. And then we'll have a go. We'll do it for 2 years, and we'll have a review after the end of 1 year. And rather than going round and round in circles talking about it, we'll actually do something. Kazim and I can't remember who else said we haven't, that the sort of leitmotif is we haven't consulted enough. So we had 7 meetings. We advertised widely. It was on Nextdoor, social media, Twitter. We had flyers. We had posters. There's not much more we could have done to advertise it more widely. And I think that the truth is that most people, again, want to be involved with the council when there's action. So more people turned up to Councillor Spalding's scrutiny when they were talking about what to do about the pre-application process, when it's a practical thing, than turned up across the whole of the governance meetings. But having said that, you know, you say you want 25% or 20% of people to be involved in that. I mean, have you actually thought what those figures mean? That would mean almost filling Chelsea football ground with people talking about scrutiny. And I think that we're very involved in it, but I don't think that we'd genuinely find people who are, because as I said, they're really interested in how it will work, what the results will be, how can they become more involved, can they become more, are we becoming more transparent? Are we involving people in decisions at the beginning rather than at the end? And that's what we want to do. And I'm surprised that, and I may be wrong, I'm very surprised that everyone on the Labour benches works full-time. I'm surprised that they weren't able to take part if we do have a panel. Let's leave it at that. And let's come back to what we were saying. I think on this side we've had a whole positive discussion about people really thinking in detail how we can improve things and how we should do things. And I commend it to our opposite benches, the attitude on the side.
Thank you. I now put the amendments to vote. Will those in favour of Amendment 1 please show? And those against, please show. We've had the abstaining. Oh, sorry, and those abstaining. Sorry. Right. The majority of the vote declare Amendment 1 carried. Will those in favour of Amendment 2 please show? Will those against please show? And are there any abstentions? Amendment 2 is not carried. I declare it lost. I now put the recommendations to the vote. Are the recommendations in paragraph 1.2 as amended adopted? Please show. And those against? And those abstaining? I declare the recommendations are carried. We now move to paragraph 2, proposed appointments policy. Does anybody wish to speak on this at all? Because otherwise,
very briefly, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
People at the top of page 2 will see that the Council also nominates the school governing bodies, but these appointments are not part of this review. That is true, but at some stage later on, I will be bringing a similar policy on school governors.
Therefore, I ask, thank you, and therefore I ask, are the recommendations of paragraph 2.3 adopted? Please show. Good. I call paragraph 3, changes to the Planning Committee. Councillor Bakhtiar, I believe that you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been a member of the Planning Committee in the past 5 years. I think the good thing we had previously, until last year, for major applications, we had all Planning Committee members were present to scrutinize a major application, which is what matters in any committee meeting. But now it's downsized to 5 members, with 1 Labour, 4 Conservative in the same committee. To change, it doesn't mean you demolish whatever you had. That was one of the best things in the Planning Committee. All Planning Committee members should be allowed to come and scrutinize. We have 3 or 4 members should be allowed to come. We have 15 or 16 members. We should keep this one. That was a functioning body working for major applications. Could you please consider that? Thank you.
Would the leader like to sum up on this issue?
Yes, just very briefly. I don't believe that we share your view, that actually, I think, having talked to a lot of people on the planning committee, they'd say that it didn't function very well and that it functions better now, where when you have complex cases, you have a sort of group of experts, the panel of 5, who can really consider everything that's in front of them. But we absolutely accept that maybe we've brought it slightly too tight, and this recommendation says, well, let's add on a couple more people to be trained up to the same level so that we make sure that we've always got a quorum, especially on very complex, detailed planning propositions.
This is what I do apologize to say this, but I think this suits you because you don't have enough members. This is not in the public interest at all.
To make sure that the people who represent the council on the major planning committees really know what they're talking about, and they're well trained and they have the time to consider the cases in front of them. And as such, I think we should continue having a major planning committee comprising of 5 people with 2 in reserve so that we always ensure that it's quorate. And that's what we're recommending here.
Right. Can I bring these recommendations to a vote?
Thank you. A brief question. In the Administration Committee report for this, when it was brought to committee, it did say that the Kensington Society had recommended that it be brought up to 9 to add more expertise, or if not 9, 7. And then in the report back from the Admin Committee, you then said, well, not you, but the committee said, well, we don't consider it so, without giving a reason as to why 5 would suffice. Now, because you listen to residents and local groups so widely, could you please give a proper explanation as to why the Kensington Society, which has so much expertise on planning, why was their advice ignored? And also, when it comes to training, the officers train members of the planning committee. Every member of the planning committee has to be trained by an officer. In last year, it was Mr. Stallwood, and this year will be his successor. So if you say there's not enough expertise, well, that's the problem of the officers who you instruct to give the training to.
Okay. I'd like to put the recommendations of paragraph 3.2. Are they adopted? Can you please show? Thank you. I would declare them carried. Appointments to executive committees. To say the item 11, appointments to executive committees, detailed members and leadership team have been circulated around the chamber. I ask the Council to note these. The appointments to committees sheet has been laid around the chamber, and I call upon Councillors Lindsay and Laurie to move the nominations standing in their names.
Can I just make a correction, Mr. Mayor? Councillor Folkes has responsibility for libraries.
Right. So that's a correction to what's been put forward. Right. Okay, we note that. So can we therefore ask, are the nominations agreed? And are there any other nominations? No? Okay, thank you. The appointment of representative, item 12, appoint representatives. The appointments sheets have been laid around the chamber, and I call upon Councillors Lindsay and Laurie to move the nominations standing in their names.
Move the appointments in my name.
Labour Group nominations in my name.
Thank you very much. Are there any? Are these nominations agreed? Are there any other nominations? Thank you very much. Conclusion of the meeting and holding a special meetings of committees. This concludes the formal business of this evening's meeting of the Council. The Council has just agreed changes to membership of committees for ensuing year. An agenda for the special meetings of the Council side committees to approve Chairman and Vice Chairman has been circulated. The meetings are now in session. May I ask members of those committees, are the memberships noted? I declare them carried. Are the Chairman and Vice Chairman as set out in paper around the chamber been approved? I declare them carried. Now, before I finally conclude this evening's business, I would like to thank you all personally for helping me in chairing this meeting. it's been considerably less of a challenge than I anticipated it might be, and I look forward to the same vein, but maybe that's in vain hope. And I would also like to make one correction. With abject horror, I forgot to mention that my wife, Councillor Addenbrooke, will be my consort as mayor. So,
do know.
thank you. That concludes the business for this meeting, although I may not survive to the next meeting. No doubt some posters will be made. The next meeting of the Council will be on the 26th of June. Thank you very much.